안녕하세요, 여러분. This is your Korean Saem, and today we're going to learn how to ask questions in Korean. Specifically, who, what, when, where, why, and how. These are the 6 basic types of questions that you can learn to ask in Korean, and I think this is actually easier to learn than English, because in English the tense and the word order, it all changes and makes it really difficult. Like, for example, I went to the bathroom. If you want to ask when, it would be when did you go instead of when you went. You know what I mean? It's just complicated. Like, if you speak English, it's not an issue, but for English learners, that stuff is hard. Luckily, Korean is a lot simpler than that, and we're gonna go over those 6 question types right now. So let's start with who. The word who in Korean is 누구, 누구. And how do you ask who is or who did something? All you need to do is replace the person or that subject or that person noun in the sentence with 누구, with a small change. But let's take a look. So our example sentence for today is 친구가 자전거를 타요. 친구가 자전거를 타요. 친구 is the subject and the person noun of this sentence, right? So all you need to do is replace 친구 with 누구. However, we don't say 누구가, we say 누가 instead of 누구가. So if you want to ask who is riding the bicycle, all you need to do is say 누가 자전거를 타요? 누가 자전거를 타요? It's really easy. All you need to say is 누가 instead of noun 이가, and there you have your sentence. So here's a question for you. 제가 왔어요. 제가 왔어요. I'm here. If you want to ask who's here, how do you say it? Instead of 제가, simply say 누가. 누가 왔어요? That means who's here. Number 2 is what. How do you say what in Korean? What in Korean is 무엇. 무엇. But in conversation, that I would say 96-7% of the time it gets abbreviated to 뭐. So 무엇 becomes 뭐. That probably happens when you say it really fast. Now, how do you ask what is something in a sentence? Again, all you need to do is take the noun part, the unknown noun, and just replace it with 무엇. Let's look at this sentence. 시계를 갖고 싶어요. 시계를, object, 시계를 갖고 싶어요. I want to have a watch. I want a watch. If you want to ask, what do you want instead of I want something, all you need to do is replace that noun 시계 with 무엇. Because 무엇 ends in a consonant, because it has a 받침, you would need to use the object marker 을 instead of 를. So 무엇을 갖고 싶어요? What do you want? This is how you would ask it. 무엇을 갖고 싶어요? Alternatively, I said we can use 뭐 instead of 무엇. In this case, 뭐 ends in a vowel sound. There's no 받침. So for 뭐, you would need to use the object marker 를. So 뭐를 갖고 싶어요? 뭐를 갖고 싶어요? This can even get further abbreviated into 뭘. 뭘 갖고 싶어요? And sometimes the object marker is just omitted altogether and you might say 뭐 갖고 싶어요? 뭐 갖고 싶어요? But note that 뭐 is a conversational form and it's not written in formal or written Korean, so just keep that in mind. Now let's look at when. When in Korean is 언제. 언제. And when you want to ask when is something, all you need to do is replace the time indicator with 언제. For example, let's look at this sentence. 7시에 영화가 시작해요. 7시에 영화가 시작해요. The movie starts at 7. So if you want to ask, when does the movie start? All you need to do is replace 7시에 with 언제. 언제 영화가 시작해요? 언제 영화가 시작해요? You should also note that this 언제 doesn't always have to be at the front of a sentence. The word order can kind of jump around depending on what you want to emphasize. So 언제 영화가 시작해요? 영화가 언제 시작해요? Both are okay, and just keep in mind that usually it comes before the verb of the sentence. Next, let's talk about where. What is where in Korean? Where in Korean is 어디. 어디. When you want to ask where is something, all you need to do is just take your sentence and replace the place noun with 어디. Here's an example. 저는 학교에서 공부해요. I study at school. So if you want to ask me, 샘물 씨, where do you study? All you need to do is replace 학교 with 어디. 샘물 씨는 어디에서 공부해요? 어디에서 공부해요? Where do you study? All you need to do is replace 학교 with 어디, and then you've got your question. Next, we're gonna look at why. In Korean, why is 왜. 왜? This in itself can just be a sentence, obviously. If you want to ask why, then you can say 왜요? And in the case of why and how, it doesn't replace any noun within the sentence. You insert it into the sentence, right? So usually it comes at the front of a sentence, but it can jump around within the sentence to emphasize different things, and that might subtly change the meaning of it. So let's look at this sentence. 아들이 요리해요. So the son, or my son, or your son, this sentence doesn't specify whose son it is, but you'll get it by context most of the time. So 아들이 요리해요. The son is cooking. Here's where it gets interesting. Depending on where you put the 왜 in the sentence, it might be asking something a little bit different. So if you say 아들이 왜 요리해요? 아들이 왜 요리해요? Then it would be asking like why the son is cooking. Like what is the reason? The 왜 is emphasizing the cooking. So why is the cooking happening, right? But if you say 왜 아들이 요리해요? Then the 왜 is placing more emphasis on the son. And you're asking why is the son cooking and not the parent or the daughter or whatever, you know? Like it's when you ask 왜 아들이 요리해요, it's asking why the son is doing the cooking. So in this sense, I hope you understand that, you know, where you put the 왜 in the sentence kind of defines what precisely you're asking. And lastly, we're going to look at how. How in Korean is 어떻게. 어떻게. Similar to 왜, 어떻게 doesn't replace anything in the sentence. It's just inserted into the sentence. And usually it comes before the verb or like the clause that includes the verb. So for example, let's say you want to ask, how do you eat fondue? 퐁듀를 먹어요. 퐁듀를 먹어요. I eat or you eat. Eat fondue. That's the sentence, right? 퐁듀를 먹어요. All you need to do is insert that 어떻게. It can be before 퐁듀를 or it can be before 먹어요. In any case, it just needs to be before the verb. So 어떻게 퐁듀를 먹어요? This works. You can also say 퐁듀를 어떻게 먹어요? So both are asking how do you eat fondue, but depending on how you say your sentence, it can kind of ask something else. Like if you say 어떻게 퐁듀를 먹어요? So if you're emphasizing the fondue, you're like, how could you eat fondue? Like, how dare you? Or like, how do you bring yourself to do it? Like that kind of how. Like, how could you eat it? 어떻게 퐁듀를 먹어요 can also mean like, how do you eat fondue? Like, can you teach me how, like the method of eating fondue? It really depends on how you deliver the question, but maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. This is really subtle. So just know all you need to do is insert that 어떻게 and it should be fine. I want to add one more thing. You might have heard 어떻게 being thrown around a lot in like Korean dramas or TV shows when someone comes across something like maybe embarrassing, or if they're flustered or shocked or something like that, you'll see 어떻게, 어떻게, right? And this 어떻게, it sounds like the 어떻게 that we just learned, but they're actually different. So that 어떻게 is spelled like this, 어떻게. And they're pronounced pretty much the same, but 어떻게 is actually an abbreviation of 어떻게 해. 어떻게 해. This gets abbreviated into 어떻게. And what this means is how to do, right? But basically it just means, oh no, what do I do? Like, what should I do? What do I do? That's what 어떻게 means. So that in itself is a sentence, just like an exclamation. It doesn't need to modify any other sentence, whereas the 어떻게 that we just learned to mean how, that cannot stand on its own. It needs to be part of another sentence and usually comes before the verb or verb phrase. So that's it for today. We learned how to ask some basic questions in Korean: who, what, when, where, why, how. Hope this helped you out. If you found this informative, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more Korean language related content. You can also check out my vlog channel for videos of me just living my life in Korea. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. 다음 영상에서 만나요.